Okay.
Hello, students. I am the Masked Reader, and today I'm going to read The Frog Band and the Mystery of Lion Castle by Jim Smith. Heave, 1, 2, 3, chanted the Frog Band as they pushed their broken-down lorry over the drawbridge of Lion Castle one New Year's Eve, scattering mud and leaves everywhere. "Oh no," gasped Mrs. McOtter. "I've just this minute cleaned there." Johann S. Frog raised his hat politely and said, "Excuse me, ma'am. We are the famous Frog Band, and as you can see, we are looking for help." The clatter on the drawbridge attracted the elderly owner of the castle, who leisurely emerged from a doorway. "Hello, chaps. Having a spot of bother? Brooker Lion at your service." Johann introduced himself and his band and asked if they might borrow a toolkit. Brooker was only too delighted to help, and, as Godfrey disappeared under the lorry, he invited the other frogs to see inside the castle. First, he took them to his laboratory, which was his pride and joy. Johann was very impressed by a strange cabinet with many knobs and switches. "That is my wireless set," announced Brooker proudly. "I can receive messages from all over the world." All the frogs were greatly mystified by the crackling sounds from it. Meanwhile, high above the castle, another frog was also mystified. Alphonse Le Flic, eminent detective, was in his gas balloon, and he was lost. He was on his way to the International Conference of Sleuths, but he had been blown off course. He was already late, but now he feared he would have to miss it altogether. Leaning over the edge of his basket, he emptied some sandblast. Suddenly, he was thrown into the corner of the basket and showered with maps, compasses, and cameras as the basket swung crazily beneath the balloon. The air was filled with a loud tearing sound and a violent hissing. Staggering to his feet, Alphonse realized that the balloon had been caught by a high wire aerial on mast on top one of the turrets of the castle below. Slowly the balloon sank to the ground as the gas escaped through the large hole. Alphonse looked for his repair kit, but it was too late. "Catch this rope and guide me down," he yelled to the group of frogs who were standing gaping in the castle courtyard. Safely on the ground, Alphonse greeted his old friends, the Frog Band, with delight and explained the problem to their host. "No trouble, my boy," said Brooker sympathetically. "I can soon make you some more gas, but tonight it's getting late." That night, as they sat around the log fire in the great hall, Brooker Lion told his guests of his ancestor, Clarence de Lion, who had disappeared from his study on New Year's Eve many years ago, when the castle had been under siege from his enemies. Ever since then, it was said that his ghost walked the castle every New Year's Eve, and no villager would go near the castle at that time. The next morning dawned bright and very cold. The surrounding countryside was white with frost, and the moat was covered with a solid sheet of ice, inches thick. While Godfrey Frog donned his overalls and started to work on the lorry's engine once again, Brooker Lion set up his equipment to produce the gas for Alphonse's balloon. Finding himself with nothing to do, Shorty Frog wandered off on his own to explore the castle's dungeon. To his disappointment, he found it had been used as a storeroom and was now full of unwanted bits and pieces piled up over the years. "Never mind," Shorty said to himself. "Perhaps I'll find something of old Clarence de Lion," and he began to sift through the junk. Right at the back of the old dungeon, Shorty came across a rusty lever set in the stone wall. Curiosity overcame him, and although he knew he shouldn't meddle, he pulled it down. Look. Immediately, the underground room echoed with a fearsome grinding noise, which ended in a long, loud gurgle. Shorty was terrified. He dived beneath an old sofa and put a dust sheet over his ears. In the meantime, up in the courtyard, the balloon had been refilled and was straining at its tethered ropes. Alphonse was delighted with the results and offered to take Brooker up for a ride in the balloon before he set off for his conference. Warmly wrapped in an enormous overcoat, Brooker Lion heaved himself into the basket. Godfrey Frog, who had finished tinkering with the lorry, had come across an old gun in a corner, and now he dragged it onto a drawbridge in order to fire a salute as the balloon ascended. Philip, the cornet player, caught the festive mood and climbed the battlements ready to blow a fanfare. As Alphonse and Brooker slowly rose out of the courtyard, Godfrey Frog put a match to the gun fuse, and, up above, Philip lifted the cornet to his lips. With a sickening thud, the grapnel caught Philip from behind, and he dropped his cornet right down into the upturned muzzle of Godfrey's gun. There was a red flash and a huge cloud of smoke as the cornet was shot clean through the balloon. Crash! The basket plummeted downwards, smashing through the thick ice and disappearing from view. "Save them! They'll be drowned!" cried Johann, trying to make himself heard above the clamor and confusion of the courtyard. However, underneath the ice, Brooker Lion and Alphonse Leflic were still in the basket, swinging wildly. The moat was waterless. Unknown to everyone, Shorty Frog's mysterious grinding lever had emptied the moat. "Don't panic," ordered Alphonse, as he produced his magnifying glass and a torch. "I'm going to investigate the situation." He climbed out of the basket onto the slimy floor of the moat. Creeping forward, he peered into the gloom. "It's all clear," he called back to Brooker Lion. "You can come out now." Down in the dungeon, Shorty Frog had been amusing himself with an old phonograph he had found behind the sofa. With only one cylinder to play, he soon became bored and thought he should go back to the others. Halfway upstairs, he worried about the lever, which was still in the wrong position. "I had better put it back to where it was," he muttered reluctantly. As soon as he did, he heard a distant, rumbling sound that was getting closer every minute. Alphonse was bravely peering in every shadow when he too heard the rumble. Nearer it came and louder. "The water!" he yelled. "It's coming back! Run!" And the two ran as fast as they could to find some other way out of the moat before the oncoming rush of water. Just as Alphonse was beginning to think the end of his promising career was over, he spied a doorway. Gasping for breath, he pulled Brooker through. The steep stairs behind the door led Alphonse and Brooker up and up until they came to a blank wall. "There must be a secret panel," breathed Alphonse, as he frantically tapped the wall to find the spring that would release the hidden door. "Oh, hurry!" panicked the old lion. Unaffected by all the excitement, Mrs. McOtter was cleaning the study. She was interrupted by a scratching noise coming from behind the wall. "The ghost!" she thought in horror, and quickly reassured herself. But surely not in daylight. Then she froze as the portrait of Clarence de Lyon slowly creaked open, and two very muddy creatures tumbled out into the polished floor. Brooker looked puzzled for a while, and then he shouted, "Well done, Alphonse! You've solved the mystery of Lion Castle. Don't you see, my boy?" He carried on. "The castle can't be haunted after all. Old Clarence didn't vanish into thin air all those years ago. He used the passage and escaped across the moat." The following summer, the Frog Band held a series of concerts in the courtyard, and Alphonse returned to give joyrides in his balloon. As Brooker Lion greeted yet another of the tourists who flocked to the castle, now that the rumor of the ghost had been lifted, he jingled his money pocket and blessed the day when the chance had led Alphonse Leflic, eminent detective, and the famous Frog Band to Lion Castle. And that was the Frog Band and the Mystery of Lion Castle. And now, can you guess who your masked reader is? Thank you. Bye-bye.